Alright guys, welcome to another video. Today we're going to be reviewing the recent 8.2 Ptr kind of patch notes and patch updates for the Heart of Azeroth specifically. We're looking at the Feral Druid with a lot of enticing potential changes. We're making our way into the Chamber of Heart with Magni, Bronzebeard, and we're looking at the Heart Forge as well as the vendor here with all of the juicy traits for us to try. Now I'm going to kind of highlight in this video a couple of the different builds that I found could be quite cool and interesting, as well as, you know, newer feral player friendly as well as more advanced gameplay. Quite a lot of open customization, but you know, if you're open to min-maxing and that's all you really care about, well then we'll look at some of the top damage traits. But let me know what your guys' combinations, you know, these are still quite new, so let me know what you've managed to come up with, and let's try and find some fun stuff to play with in 8.2. Alright guys, now do remember that this is still the PTR, so everything we see here is still subject to change. But it seems like Blizzard are pretty, you know, they're pretty confident in the system. It seems fairly well fleshed out. I'm pretty positive after today with, you know, reviewing some of these. It will inevitably come down to a min-max war of you know, what does the most damage? Okay, I'm going to choose that one. What does the guide say? What does the Feral Druid Discord say? All that kind of stuff. But I do still encourage you to check some of these traits out and find what works for you. Definitely. I'm not going to be showing off every single trait in this video. I will just kind of be taking you through some of the builds that I found were really quite strong. But please feel free to, you know, if you got any specific questions, you can ask in the comment section, or, you know, you can go and take this and research further in your own time. There is also, of course, you can just pause the video and look at what some of these traits do. Some of these traits are a little bit open-ended. It's kind of like, okay, so what's the proc rate on this? You know, how good is this going to be dependent on how often it procs? Some of these are more player-friendly, new player-friendly, I guess. Some of them have short cooldowns. So some traits like Guardian of Azeroth has a 5-minute cooldown. So that might seem very strong, but then, you know, you got to wait 5 minutes in between every use. So maybe actually, you know, you want to try a different trait that you're going to get some more usability out of. If you're on a boss fight that only lasts 3 minutes, there's no point taking a trait that only lasts for, you know, that's going to be on cooldown for the whole of that fight. Whereas you could take something else that's got a minute and a half or a minute cooldown and get actual proper usability out of it. So bear that in mind. But we'll go a little bit more in depth in just a moment as to how these combinations could work in situ. Okay guys, so with this build, we're going to be running with Vision of Perfection as our major miner, which is going to have a 50% chance to activate Berserk for 50% base cooldown. So for 10 seconds periodically throughout the fight. When activated, the cooldown is reduced by 10 seconds and reduces the overall cooldown by 16% and increases your versatility. When you activate Berserk, immediately heal for 5% max health. So this is basically going to make it so that your Berserk is like rapidly off cooldown and you have rapid burst phases with your Berserk or your Incon should you choose to use it. I still would recommend Soul of the Forest and Blood Talons, but you can run Incon and Moment of Clarity if you just want a very basic intro build. You just want spam, you want a lot of Wild Flesh runnings in the mix. Maybe this would be coupled nicely with Untamed Ferocity and get that reduction on your Berserk / Incon regardless. One thing to note here, if you take Incon, I don't know if this is working as intended, but if you take Incon, it still only gives you 10 seconds of Incon and not 15 seconds as you should. You'll be able to see here that the base, that the damage is pretty reasonable. It's fairly okay. Burst damage is definitely a step up from live, but you don't really retain a very high damage level because your ferocious bites aren't hitting very hard with this build style. Your shreds hit for around about 40k crits is what I was getting, and my ferocious bites were doing about 85k crits, max crits. So shreds, sorry, hit very hard. Ferocious bites, not so much. Just as a side note as well, the passive trait we're getting in this is Memory of Lucid Dreams, which increases energy regen rate by 100% and leech by 900 seconds. And spells have a chance to refund 50% of the energy spent on them or heal you for 11k. When energy is refunded, you gain 50% of your verse. So basically, the way it works with having these two traits is you're just going to have massive periods of just burst damage. Like you'll see, even though my Incon has fallen off, I mean, even when it falls off, I still have the chance to proc Incon, as well as just having massive energy regen. You basically don't stop spamming with this build. It really kind of makes you feel like 7.3.5 of Legion Feral Druid, endgame Feral Druid in Antorus, which a lot of people like, me not so much, but it definitely felt fun. This is more of a single target build. I definitely wouldn't recommend this on an AoE build. But that's one of them. All right, and now we're getting on to some of the fun stuff. This is quite an interesting build with just going with the Blood of the Enemy as your major minor trait and Engine of Ceaseless Progress as your minor. So Blood of the Enemy is going to blast for AoE damage in 12 yards. It's going to do a massive amount of damage, around about 100k per enemy hit, as well as giving you 25% crit strike against those targets, as well as increasing your crit hit damage by 35% for 15 seconds. Worthy of note, this crit strike increase will not show up on your stat weights. You can see I'm currently sitting at around about 32% crit, 7% haste, 2% verse, 60% mastery. That is my current live build, as this character has been transferred over from live at about a 412 item level. So yeah, with the Blood of the Enemy, you're getting massive amounts of crit on these enemies, on these targets. Now, if those targets die and you move on to a new pack, you won't retain that crit, but, that's by the by. If you're on a boss fight, it's all well and good. Your crit hit abilities also grant stacks of 30 crit a time, up to 25 stacks. Then, when you hit 25 stacks, you get 1,000 haste for 12 seconds. And Blood of the Enemy has a 25% chance of only consuming 15 stacks. So you just gain a bunch of crit, bunch of haste. You can see we burst in this build. This is with our Blood Talons, this is with our Soul of the Forest, and with Brutal Slash. We're bursting for like 55, 60k damage with this build. And if you watch our crit, what is our crit peak at? Like I think we peak at 90-ish K? Oh, sorry, 90-ish percent? Somewhere in that region. But you can see it's constantly, hitting 55%, 75%, 80%, plus the 25% hidden amount of crit. So you're really hitting around about 100% crit at certain periods of the fight. And you just sustain insane amounts of damage, over 30k, 34, 30, 35k damage. Now, bear in mind, this is without Bloodlust, this is without pre-pot, this is without post-pot, this is without monk buff, warrior buff. Like, imagine this on a boss fight burst. You just absolutely ruin it. And the Blood of the Enemy really doesn't have a long cooldown, only a minute and a half, so you can constantly be using this. And if there are intermittent periods of AoE on a boss, you can kind of hold on to this and just get massive bursts on AoE. And really give some of the other classes a run for their money. Maybe Feral might actually be desirable. So Engine of Ceaseless Progress, as well as the minor that we're using for this build. And you create, with the passive, you're only gaining every 2 seconds your power with haste, mastery, and crit. After reaching 10 stacks of one of those, it overcharges, doubling the effect of everything. And then the stacks are removed after that 8 seconds. But you can get like 8 stacks of crit, 9 stacks of haste, and then 10 stacks of mastery. And then when you hit 10 stacks of one of them, they all double. So you end up, I had it when I was testing this, where I had like 600 crit, 600 mastery, 600 haste collectively. It's absolutely insane. All right, and now moving on to the last section of this video, I just want to show you a little bit of fun that can be had with Engine of Ceaseless Progress and Blood of the Enemy in AoE. You take Primal Wrath for this, Sabertooth and Blood Talons, that's fine, nothing's going to be dying on just these target dummies, but I'm stacking Wild Flesh Running here and a lot of crit with Jungle Fury and Blightborn Infusion. Just watch what happens here when we're just literally thrash, swiping, Primal Wrathing, and that's it. As well as obviously making use of the Blood of the Enemy. Watch how much damage we burst for. Around, I'm not going to spoil it for you, but we burst for around about 100k, and you'll see that we can sustain 50k. It'll slowly drop down to about 50k DPS, but on 4 targets, you can pretty much have this up every if you're in a Mythic Plus, every single mob pack pull or every other mob pack pull, depending on what level you're doing, depending on if it's fortified or tyrannical and that kind of thing, It's insane. You can sustain 50k DPS on 4 targets. Now, this is like a 2-minute fight of sustaining this. You imagine most mob packs are only going to be alive for 20, 30 seconds. You can probably hold 60, 70k DPS every other mob pack just with this kind of build here. So really, really strong. Imagine if you maybe threw in a Gushing Laceration trait or so. But this is really just to take you through a couple combinations I found. Obviously, running with the Vision of Perfection and Memory of Lucid Dreams. That's more of a, I guess the lazy ferals play style, but definitely worth checking out. As well as Blood of the Enemy and Engine of Caesar's Progress having insane single target and AoE potential. But like I said at the beginning of this video, guys, please, check it out for yourself. Get on the PTR now. It's definitely your time to comment and let Blizzard know your thoughts on these traits. Do you think they're going to make us competitive enough? Will we outcompete the Demon Hunters, the Rogues, enjoy that nerf Outlaw Rogue, the monks, the paladins are probably going to be coming up strong. So definitely, let me know your thoughts in the comments section, or come over to my Twitch at twitch.tv/cybeslat and let me know what you think. I hope you enjoyed this first look at this build.